You're going to grow old. I know. That's not something you sit around thinking about. You assume it's a distant problem. Something future you will handle when the time comes. You think you'll adapt. You won't. None of us do. You don't arrive at old age prepared. You drift into it. One ordinary day becomes another, and suddenly your body and your life begin changing in ways no one warned you about. Not gently, not gradually enough to notice, just enough to leave you wondering when it started. I'm 85 years old. I spent 38 years working as a hospice nurse, standing at the edge of life with people as they took their final breaths. I held more hands in those last moments than most people will hold in a lifetime. I believed that made me ready. I thought witnessing death would somehow prepare me for aging. It didn't. Nothing did. So before you scroll past this to something lighter, let me tell you what's waiting for you. Not to frighten you, but because I wish someone had said it to me when I still had time to listen. Your body gets smaller, not symbolically, physically. I used to be 5'6". I remember standing beside my husband on our wedding day, shoulders back, spine straight, feeling solid in my body. Today I'm barely 5'4", my spine compressed. The cushion in between my bones wore down. 2.5 inches of me simply disappeared. And here's what no doctor's brochure ever mentions. When your body shrinks, your presence does too. You occupy less space. You feel lighter, thinner, easier to miss. You're more easily stepped around, spoken over, forgotten while standing right there. Now, last Christmas, my grandson hugged me and I felt fragile in his arms, like something small and breakable. I used to be the one people leaned on. Now I'm the one who feels like I might tip over. Women lose more height than men. By 80, the average woman has lost 3 inches. 3 inches of the life she once stood tall inside, taken away slowly, bone by bone, year by year. It isn't just height. Strength leaves quietly. My hands can't open jar lids anymore. I can't carry all my groceries in one trip. I once lifted patients, worked 12-hour shifts, stood without thinking about it. Now walking to the mailbox leaves me short of breath. Your body doesn't collapse all at once. It doesn't offer you the mercy of a clear ending. It simply becomes less, day by day, task by task, until one morning you realize how much has already gone. And then you begin to disappear, not because people are cruel, though sometimes they are, but because the world stops looking for you. I mean this literally. You stop registering in people's vision. Just last month I was standing at the pharmacy counter, prescription in my hand, waiting my turn. A young man behind the counter looked straight through me and helped the woman in her 40s who had walked up behind me. Not past me, through me. When he finally noticed me, he looked startled, like he'd just realized a chair could talk. Nearly 70% of women say they feel invisible as they age. 70%. The world that once watched you, assessed you, wanted you, needed you, maybe even feared you, that world eventually stops scanning for you at all. You become background, street furniture, something people step around on the sidewalk without a second thought. That's what it means to become old. But invisibility is one kind of loneliness. There's another kind that cuts deeper. You outlive almost everyone who ever truly knew you. My husband Tommy died 7 years ago. My best friend from nursing school, Patricia, in 2021. My brother in 2018. My neighbor Helen, coffee every Tuesday for years, gone in 2023. One by one, the people who remembered my stories, my younger face, my old jokes, disappeared. I am running out of witnesses to my life, running out of people who can say, remember when? I am slowly becoming the last living proof that I ever existed the way I once did. And here's something no one prepares women for. Widowhood. More than 40% of women over 65 are widows. Almost half of us. Yet every single one feels like she's the only person in the world going through it. I was Tommy's wife for 56 years. For the last 6, I was also his nurse as Parkinson's took him apart piece by piece. I bathed him, fed him, comforted him when he no longer recognized my face. When he died, I thought I had already survived the worst part. I hadn't. The worst part is every night since. The worst part is reaching across the bed and touching cold sheets. The worst part is cooking meals meant for 2 and eating them alone. The worst part is realizing that grief doesn't fade. It just becomes furniture in your life. You arrange yourself around it, and with grief comes fear. I fell in my kitchen in 2022. I was reaching for something in a cabinet, lost my balance, and went down hard on the tile. Broken wrist. Months of recovery. Do you know what it does to a person to become afraid of her own floor? Now I think about falling all the time. When I get out of bed, in the shower, walking down the porch steps to collect the mail. Studies show up to 70% of older adults who fall develop a serious fear of falling again. Here's the cruelty of it. The fear makes it worse. You tense up. You limit your movements. You stop walking the way your body knows how. And slowly, you become the fragile thing you're trying so desperately not to be. I used to dance barefoot with my husband in the kitchen. Now I slide across it with one hand glued to the counter. Then there's the shift that humbles you in ways nothing else can. Your children become your parents. I raised 3 children, changed diapers, sat through fevers and nightmares, taught them how to drive, paid for weddings, and now they look at me with that same careful, watchful expression I used to see on families of my hospice patients. My son Tom keeps mailing me brochures for assisted living. My daughter Peggy calls every morning at 7:30 not to chat, just to make sure I'm still alive. I know they do it out of love. I know they're afraid of losing me. I see it in their faces. But do you know what it feels like to hear your own children lower their voices and speak about you in the next room, as if you're already half gone? To have your car keys quietly removed and be told, "We'll talk about this later," the same way you'd speak to a reckless teenager? I spent my life being the capable one, the fixer, the woman people called when things fell apart. And now I'm the situation they're managing, the concern they're coordinating around, which means you carry something heavy every single day, the fear of becoming a burden. Nearly half of aging parents admit they worry about this constantly. Half of us are walking around carrying the same silent guilt that by staying alive, we're costing the people we love time, money, energy, opportunities. When my daughter drives 45 minutes to bring groceries, I calculate the gas. When my son misses work to take me to an appointment, I think about the promotion he might lose. When plans get canceled because of me, a thought creeps in that I hate myself for having. Maybe everyone would be better off if I didn't need so much. I don't mean I want to die. I mean I wish I didn't require. I want to be the mother who gives again, not the one who needs. And I spent 38 years telling dying patients that they were not burdens, that love is not measured by convenience, that need and care is not a moral failure. I meant every word. Believing it for myself has been much harder. And loneliness. Loneliness has nothing to do with numbers. I have children who call, grandchildren who send photos, great-grandchildren who wave at me through a screen. I'm not alone in the way people imagine loneliness, and yet I have never felt lonelier, because loneliness lives at night. It lives at 3 a.m. when sleep won't come, and there's no one in the house to tell. It lives in eating dinner with the television on, not for entertainment, but to hear a human voice. It lives in that moment after the lamp is switched off, before sleep arrives, when the silence presses so hard it almost hurts. And I once had a patient in her 90s who told me, "The nights are so long now." At the time, I nodded politely. After Tommy died, I understood. The nights are endless. Then your own mind begins to scare you. Last week, I forgot my neighbor's name. I've known her for 12 years. I stood on my porch, mouth open, searching my memory like a locked drawer. An hour later, it came back. Sharon. But for that hour, I was certain something terrible had begun. Memory slips happen at any age, but when you're 85, everyone feels like an alarm. I watched 2 close friends disappear into dementia. I held their hands when they no longer knew who I was. So when I walk into a room and forget why I'm there, I don't laugh it off. I freeze, wondering if this is the start of my own disappearance. I keep a notepad by my bed now. I write things down not because I always need to, but because I'm afraid of what it would mean if I didn't. And eventually, You have to plan your own ending. I have a living will, a do not resuscitate order, clear instructions for my children. I've chosen the dress I want to be cremated in, a blue one Tommy used to say made my eyes shine. I've written letters to each of my grandchildren for my daughter to give them after I'm gone. I didn't do this because I'm morbid. I did it because I spent nearly 4 decades watching families fall apart, simply because no one talked about death until it was already in the room. I know what happens when children have to guess what you would have wanted. So I've told them, no machines keeping me alive, no extraordinary measures. If possible, let me die at home. They scatter my ashes in the garden where Tommy and I used to sit on summer evenings. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of suffering. I'm afraid of forgetting the people I love. I'm afraid of becoming someone they have to care for instead of someone they want to visit. Death is not the enemy. I learned that in hospice. Suffering is. Loss of dignity is. Becoming a body without a story. That's what I fear. So there it is. The realities no one warns you about when you're young and certain you'll figure it out later. I'm not telling you this to make you sad. I'm telling you this because one day you'll be here too. Maybe not at 85. Maybe at 90. Maybe much sooner than you expect. But there will come a day when you're standing inside a body that no longer obeys you, surrounded by people who speak to you more carefully than they used to, facing decisions you never imagined would belong to you. And when that day comes, I want you to know you are not alone. Because there is something no one talks about, something unexpected that arrives only after you stop fighting what cannot be fixed. When you finally accept that your body is changing and your time is limited, something settles in. Not happiness, not the kind they sell you, but peace, a quiet kind. I don't worry about a career anymore. I had one, and it's finished. I don't worry about what people think of me, because most of them aren't thinking of me at all. And strangely, that's freeing. I don't worry about future mistakes, because the future is no longer an endless list of expectations. In the mornings, I watch the birds at my feeder, and I truly see them. I taste my coffee instead of swallowing it while rushing somewhere. I call my grandchildren not out of obligation, but because hearing their voices feels like sunlight. I stopped hurrying, about 30 years too late, but I did stop, and that has to matter. So if you are young, call your mother, call your grandmother. Not out of guilt, but because one day you will ache for the sound of their voices and realize you didn't store enough of them away. And if you are older, if you're listening to this and nodding because every word feels familiar, I want you to hear this clearly. I see you. You are not invisible to me. We are not invisible to each other.